Ciao a tutti, buonasera. Sono Valentina, coordinatrice editoriale di Speak Up e vi do il benvenuto questa sera a Quarantine Talks. Questo è il titolo che avete scelto qualche giorno fa in un poll che abbiamo lanciato sui social e per una serie di conversazioni, di chiacchierate tra amici con degli ospiti italiani che vivono all'estero o lavorano all'estero o semplicemente che usano l'inglese nel loro lavoro quotidianamente. Quindi oggi in particolare parleremo di come si può studiare l'inglese da soli e poi anche di un lavoro un po' particolare nel settore sanitario in questo periodo di emergenza sanitaria, appunto. Quindi ovviamente siete invitati a partecipare anche voi con le vostre domande e potete scrivere sotto nei commenti e io le leggerò. So I can see our guest is here. Let's start. Wait a second. Here you are. Hi
Hi
Paolo.
Valentina, ciao, buon pomeriggio.
Ciao. Thank you for joining us.
Sure, thank you for having me.
So Paolo Agostinelli is our first guest. He's Italian, and he works for a U.S. company. He works as a community manager at Sermo, which is a social platform for physicians, right?
Yeah,
So I have a few questions for you, but first of all, I will ask you to introduce yourself briefly,
of
if you don't
course.
mind.
Sure. So thank you for having me. My name is Paolo. I was born and raised in Rome. Um, I lived in Italy until I was 26 years old and then moved to Spain in 2006. Although I lived in other places as well ever since, including Australia, where I lived for a year in Sydney, and
Wow.
Brazil, yeah, and also Brazil for a few years. But I'm based in Barcelona, Spain.
Okay, cool. So have you ever lived in the UK or in the States?
No, never lived in
No,
the
no.
UK, never lived in the US, but I do travel and visit the United States pretty often. Um, Partly due to my work, because as you mentioned earlier, I work for an American company whose headquarters are in New York, but also because I like traveling a lot, I travel a lot to the United States and have friends that I try to visit as often as possible.
Cool. Great. And so where did you learn English and how did you learn English? Was it
So
in
I
Italy?
Yes, it was in Italy. I started learning English when I was 10, 11 years old. So scuola media, middle school, basically. That's where I started having the first contact with a foreign language, which was English. And I studied English basically middle school and high school, but I mostly studied it on my own. I always considered myself self-taught because I really had a strong interest in English and other foreign languages as well. So ever since I started learning English, I also developed this personal interest. And I was, trying to find all the opportunities to practice and improve my English. I had a few friends in the town where I lived in Italy who were English mother tongue, so they moved to Italy
Okay.
after living in the UK. So it was a great opportunity for me to um, practice my English. But, and I'd like to mention this since we're having this conversation, Speak Up was actually one of my main resources growing up to learn English. Uh,
Great.
yeah. So back in the days, I don't know, people who are listening might be younger and they don't even know what a videotape is. But when I was learning English in my teens, when I was a teenager, um, Speak Up used to sell, well, the magazine, of course, but it would come with a videotape with a movie. I think it was weekly or monthly. I can't remember really. But the good thing was that the videotape was obviously in English, so it was American or English
Yeah.
movies with subtitles. Back in the day, subtitles were not that common. We didn't have subtitles on TV, so that was a very good way to learn and practice English.
Great. So a good
So
way
thank
to
you, Speak
start.
Up. Thank you so much.
Thank to you. So a good way to study English, practice English is, of course, listening and to music, for example, or watching movies in the
Yes.
original language, as you
Yeah.
did.
Actually, now that you mention it, music was another big resource that I used to learn English. So again, the CDs, which are not existing anymore, like videotapes, but used to come with lyrics. So that was another way that I learned. I memorized all the songs that I loved, and while memorizing them, obviously, I was also curious, so I would pick up the dictionary and look
Sure.
up the words, and that was a very, very good exercise as well.
Great.
Yeah.
And so based on your personal experience, um, can you give some advice to our followers, to people who are learning English right now?
Well, I mean, obviously, if you can travel to a country where English is spoken, that's wonderful. But before you do that, you need to, have the basic knowledge. And I think that it's very important to listen to the language. So either watching TV, and nowadays with all the TV platforms like Netflix, HBO, whatever, but even regular TV nowadays, you can switch to the original language and watch the movie or the TV
Sure.
series or the show in local language and have the subtitles. So that's a very good exercise. And I suggest having the subtitles in English, not in your local language. If you already have a good knowledge, because that way you start associating the sound to the actual words, to the way words are written, because we know that English is not phonetically spelled like Italian. So I think it's important also to see how the words are written. So yeah, listening to it and try to practice as much as possible. So grasp any opportunities you have to be in a conversation. Do not feel embarrassed if you have an accent, if you make mistakes. That was one of the things that I struggled with the most at the beginning because I felt very self-conscious, very embarrassed about not being able to sustain a conversation and make mistakes. But you don't have to be afraid. You have to make mistakes. You make mistakes, people will correct you, or you will realize that you're making a mistake, and then you will learn from your mistakes. So yeah.
Sure. Good advice. And was it difficult for you to study English grammar? How was your approach to grammar?
So personally, I didn't find it difficult. People say that I have a thing for languages, so I like them very much, and it comes easier than for other people. That's what they say, at least. But no, I don't think. Actually, I think the English grammar is probably one of the easiest ones out of the languages that I know and speak. It's probably one of the easiest one. Of course, there's a lot of exceptions. I think that the hardest part of English is the pronunciation and reading part as well, because there's a
Uh-huh.
lot of rules. Yeah, but not the grammar. For me, the grammar was actually the easiest part.
Okay, cool. Let's speak about your job, if you don't mind,
Sure.
because this is a very special moment for
Yeah.
your industry, the healthcare industry.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
are
So,
how is it?
so as you mentioned earlier, I work for a company that is called Sermo, Sermo. That actually comes from Latin, that means conversation,
Yes.
discussion. Um, that is an American company. As I mentioned, the headquarters are based in New York, but we have offices all around the world. And it's currently
New
considered the
York.
New York, yes, exactly, like you have on the wall. It's considered the number one social network for physicians, for doctors around the world. So it's basically, I always say that it's a Facebook for doctors, although only certified physicians can access it. And it's available for doctors in over 150 countries, and it's a way for them to basically share their knowledge with other doctors in other countries. If they have questions or doubts about patient cases, they can use this platform to communicate with doctors worldwide. So it's what we call medical crowdsourcing, basically. And right now, we're very active. We have a lot of work, of course, because there are a lot
Yeah.
of doctors, which is also encouraging to see that doctors across countries are cooperating with each other, sharing patient cases, sharing their knowledge, points of view, and so forth. So yeah, it is an
Mm,
interesting moment to
yeah.
work in this industry.
Do you usually work from home?
I mostly work from home. We do have an office in Barcelona, that's where I live. But personally, I mostly work from home because the team I work with is completely, they're all based in the US, so New York and then other offices on the East Coast. So it really doesn't make a difference for me to go to the office here. So yeah, I mostly work from home.
So what's your day like?
So my day, yeah, obviously, my day hasn't changed in this pandemic right
Yeah.
now because, as I said, obviously, sometimes I would go to the office and then there's other things that have changed, like they have for everybody else. But my day is, I wake up in the morning, have a coffee, and then sit down and well, take a shower and get ready. I try to, be ready for work. Like if I had to go out, at least most of the days, it makes a big impact psychologically, I think. But yeah, I work from 9 to 6. My mornings are really quiet because the US is sleeping, so I have all the time to do things without being, disturbed, being called on the phone or anything. And then starting from 3 p.m. here, which is 9 a.m. on the East Coast, that's where the team wakes up, and then we usually have video conferences, group meetings, to discuss our work, our daily work. So we do have a lot of video conferences, like everybody's getting used to right now. But let's say that for me, it's the norm. That's what I always do. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Are you working on a specific study or campaign during this pandemic?
So as I said, the company is a platform for doctors for all specialties, and they can post stuff whatever they want. Can post about patient case, about a new treatment, or whatever. We also, by the way, we also do market research with these doctors. So we send them invites to do online surveys. And obviously, with all this, with the current situation, we wanted to actually ask our doctors to see what's happening. So we developed a barometer, which is basically like an online survey that we're sending out every week on a weekly basis to doctors in 30 countries. So mainly it's the United States, the big European 5, and then a bunch of other countries. So in total, it's about 30. Obviously, United States and EU5 are where most doctors are replying from. I think right now we've interviewed about 6,000 doctors in total on average, because as I said, we send out the invite every week, and it's been done for 3 weeks already. And this is a very specific survey that we're doing for COVID-19 because we are we are asking them basically what they're feeling is, what are the what their point of view is about the current situation in each country. Yeah, and it's actually something very interesting. So as I said, this platform is usually only for doctors, but we've opened this study for everybody to see. So if anybody can log
Oh,
in on
cool.
our website, which is www.sermo.com, sermo.com. And then you can filter the data to see globally or by country. Just this morning, I was checking out the data, and for example, 76% of Italian doctors think that Italy has already reached the peak of the outbreak. So
Okay.
yeah, and then it gives you, an overview of all the countries that we're interviewing. So it's interesting also for people who are not physicians or doctors, because you're hearing the voice of doctors that are in the front line and that are in the field fighting this pandemic for all of us.
Sure. I'll check it.
Yeah,
Sermo.com.
correct.
Great. Good. So I don't know if there are any questions from our followers. Let me check. Congratulations to you for your English.
Thank you.
More congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Some questions. Qualcuno vuole fare una domanda? Aspettiamo un attimo. Let's wait 2 minutes, maybe.
I'm also happy to come back at another time to answer questions.
Sure, whenever you want. Sarebbe bello fare un'altra live, magari parlando dell'Australia, no? Dato che hai vissuto in Australia.
Non so se si vedono, però
Sì, ci sono
le
delle
foto di
foto
Sydney. Yeah.
bellissime. Qui chiedono che lavoro fa Paolo. Community, yeah,
So
please
as I
answer.
said, the company, would you like me to say it in Italian or English?
In English, it's better.
Okay. So as I said, it's a social network for doctors, and my job personally, I am a community and engagement manager. So we take care of the community. We try to keep them engaged. And we have to manage the community. So a community manager, I think, is the easiest way to put it.
Okay.
And I can see a question if I'm Italian or Spanish.
Yeah.
I am Italian. I was born and raised in Italy, but I've been living in Spain for the past 15 years.
Yeah. So how long does the job day last? It's another question.
Yeah, it's when I'm lucky, it's a regular 8-hour job per day. So 8 hours, that's the goal, like 9 to 6, 10 to 7. Working with the US, sometimes it happens that I had to stay up late because, not up, but I had to work later in my evening because some things just need to be discussed internally before they can be published on the platform, for example. So obviously, if New York is meeting at noon, that's 6 o'clock for us in Europe, in Spain. So sometimes I would need to wait until 7 or 8 o'clock. But it's fine. It's very flexible in my case, because sometimes I have to work until 10 p.m., which is 4 p.m. in the US. But then the next morning, maybe I don't have to start until later in the morning.
Sure. Okay, so if you don't have more questions, I think it's okay for today, and maybe we can meet next week or the other one.
Sure.
And yeah, we can talk about Australia, your experience there. How is the country?
Just one thing I can mention about Australia very briefly is that the reason why I lived in Australia was because I applied for a working holiday visa, which is a 1-year visa that is granted to citizens of certain countries, including Italy, aged 18 to 30 years. So it's not my case anymore, of course, but back in the days, I could apply for the visa. It's a very easy way to travel and work in Australia. Um, it's easy and it's a very great opportunity if you're willing to improve or practice your English and know a beautiful country. So I'm really happy to talk about it on another interview if you guys want.
Sure. Yes, sure. It will be a pleasure for us. So, thank you so much for your time,
Okay.
Paolo.
I am sorry, I just saw a
Yeah,
question. Do you mind if I answer it?
where? No, sure.
So it says, in your
Please.
opinion, can a person speak
Ah,
English well only studying it and practicing it, but living in Italy? I never lived abroad. So
okay.
Katya, I think you can develop, you can learn very good English by studying and practicing while living in Italy. I mean, as I said, nowadays we have a lot of resources. We can access, movies and with subtitles. You can watch TV. You can watch TV shows. I mean, even Instagram and Facebook and all the social media right now nowadays have a lot of English content that you can listen to, and that's a great thing to practice and get used to the sound and the words and the
Mm-hmm.
expressions. So yes, you can learn it just studying and practicing in Italy, but I do suggest going abroad, to have an experience in an English-speaking country to fully grasp the language.
Sure. There's another question for you.
Yeah.
If it
Uh,
was more difficult to learn English or Spanish.
So English was the first language, the first foreign language that I learned when I was, as I said, I started learning English when I was 11. Spanish, I learned it a little bit later in life. I think Spanish was easier because it's similar to Italian. So at least you can get around just by listening to people. And then grammar is another thing. So Spanish grammar is more difficult than English, I think, because it's closer to the Italian one. But it's easy for an Italian to learn Spanish than it is English because of the similarity of the language.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm
Okay.
single. I can see a question. I am still available.
That's a private question.
Sorry. You're welcome, Katya. I can see your thank you note.
Thank you. So, yeah, Paolo, thanks again.
Sure, thank
See you
you.
soon,
Of
hopefully.
course. Yep, whenever you want.
And yeah,
So keep up with the good
bye.
work, everybody, and stay
Thank
safe.
you. Stay
Bye.
safe. You too.
Ciao,
Bye.
Valentina.
Ciao. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for watching. See you next time. Alla prossima. Ciao.